How to make six figures in 6 months on Airbnb without owning property by Brian Page, creator of the B&B formula. It's common knowledge that owning real estate has been a path to wealth for many. Just a quick look at the Forbes list of the richest people in America will reveal real estate has been a big part of their strategy. But what if you didn't have to own real estate to become wealthy? Have you noticed the shift in the new economy? Many of the world's largest companies don't own anything. For example, Facebook creates no content, but it's worth $475 billion. Uber owns no taxis, but it's worth $72 billion. Amazon makes no products, but it's now worth $1 trillion. And the newcomer that's disrupting the real estate market as we know it is called Airbnb. Airbnb doesn't own any properties, but they are currently worth $30 billion and growing fast. Welcome to the sharing economy. Buckle up because what you're about to discover has the potential to make you financially independent in months, not years. What you will learn. I'm going to show you a proven system that allows you to rent properties, list them on Airbnb, and then automate nearly everything so that you can earn six figures or more working part-time. How I earned $301,683 my first year on Airbnb. This is where it all started, with my spare bedroom. I was renting a little two-bedroom apartment, and my roommate unexpectedly moved out, leaving me responsible for the entire rent, which I couldn't afford. The room was nothing fancy. I just put some cheap furniture in there and a little fridge and tried to make it look like a little hotel room. And my goal was simply to make up for the portion of rent that my ex-roommate left me with. But that's not what happened. I ended up making enough on this little spare bedroom to pay my entire rent and all my utilities. So I was basically living for free. And then all the money that I made in my job was being deposited into my savings account. So it was an amazing experience. And as I sat there each night, all this money coming in from Airbnb, I was thinking, what can I do to expand? I can't exactly give up my own bedroom. So I decided to go look for a rental unit. I walked my neighborhood, hoping to find something close by, and a few blocks away, I found a little one-bedroom apartment. It was located in the back of this lady's house and came complete with a separate entrance. She had a little sign in the front yard that said for rent. So I approached her as she was raking her leaves in her lawn and said, "Hey, listen, I want to rent your place, but I don't want to live in it. I'd like to have guests come and stay here short term. Are you okay with that?" She said, "You know what? Let me think about it." She got back to me the following day. She said, "Let's go for it, Brian. I want to do this with you." So I signed a lease for $1,800 a month. Now that might be considered a lot where you live. Don't be stuck on how much the rental is. This can work for an $800 unit or a $10,000 unit. This one was $1,800 and my utilities were on average about $300 a month. So $2,100 is all it cost me for this little apartment. Now what happened when I listed this apartment on Airbnb is I ended up bringing in $3,716 the first month. Remember, my total expenses for this property were only $2,100. So that first month I made $1,616 profit. And in addition to that, I was still making money from my little spare room. So the next month, what happened on Airbnb, I brought in $3,851, which means I made $1,751 in December after paying my rent and utilities. What happened is I made $20,555 profit for the entire year. Think about that for a minute. I made over $20,000 on a little one-bedroom apartment a couple blocks from where I lived. How would your life change just by having one listing that you didn't own on Airbnb? Especially when you don't need to put down a 20% deposit to purchase it. That deal changed everything for me. So I did what any red-blooded American entrepreneur would do. I went out and found another rental. This time I found a studio apartment. I approached the owner. She had been trying to rent it for months. She was asking $2,000 a month for this unit. And the best thing about this unit is all the utilities were included and it was furnished. The owner was thrilled with the idea of renting it to me because she couldn't get anyone else to rent it because a $2,000 studio is expensive. But I knew it would be worth a lot more on Airbnb. So I signed a lease and listed it on Airbnb. Now the first month, I pretty much broke even. I made $86. But look what happened in the next month. This property earned me $4,524. And remember, my expenses were only $2,000 with all utilities included, which means I made $2,500 plus in profit. And get this, it was all done with one reservation. I gave my guest a discount for booking the entire month. Now, why in the world would somebody pay that kind of money to stay in my place for an entire month? Because this guest was looking to move to town and the cost of staying in a hotel would have been even more. She wanted to live in the neighborhood, kind of get to know the area before she moved, and didn't want to pay hotel prices. So I gave her a little bit of a discount and still made $2,500 hosting this one guest during my second month of having the listing. So I was very happy. The next month in March, I made $2,800 in profit. Then in April, $4,546. Think about that for a second. $4,500 profit on a unit that I didn't own, and it was already furnished. I listed the property on Airbnb with permission from the owner before I even had keys to the property. So I was able to start booking immediately, which allowed me to be profitable before my first rent payment was even due. The key point here, I started getting bookings before I had keys to the property. For the year, on that one unit, I brought in $55,950. And my total expenses were $24,000 a year, which is $2,000 a month. So I made $31,818 for the year on this one little unit. So the next thing I did was I found a one-bedroom guest house and I put that up on Airbnb. I ended up making $685 the first month. Then the second month I made $1,899. So next, I went out and leased my first two-bedroom rental. It was a big step for me. I had a track record of leasing one-bedrooms and studios, but I wondered, will this work with a two-bedroom? And there were none of them available in my neighborhood, so I hopped in my car and started looking. And I ended up finding a two-bedroom unit in a marginal side of town. And this thing had commercial-grade carpet, very cheap cabinets, ugly wallpaper. It was just a basic old apartment. Nothing fancy at all about this unit, but it was cheap. The owner was only asking $1,300 a month for a two-bedroom, and I had room in there to put a sleeper sofa. So I could easily sleep 6 people total in this unit. Utilities were about $300, so all in, I was talking about $1,600 a month. Now, this unit was not 100% furnished, but I didn't care. I had already created a large cash flow from listing one-bedroom furnished units on Airbnb, so I was ready for a new challenge. I knew I could furnish it on the cheap using sites like Craigslist. The first month was not so awesome because I didn't quite break even. I was negative $245. But that's okay, I was looking to break even. Look what happened the next month. The next month, I made $2,300 in profit. So at that point, I had all the money back in my pocket from furnishing the unit, and everything from here on out was just profit. So now I was truly profitable the next month where I made $1,482. And I just kept going. I went looking for another rental. I found another one bedroom, only this was a condo, a nice little place, and the owner was asking only $1,200 a month. That unit made me about $1,000 in profit the first month, and then went on to make me over $3,000 every month thereafter. I don't want to bore you to tears with all these different numbers, but you get the idea, right? Using this exact method, in the first 6 months on Airbnb, I earned a total of $117,864. And for the entire year, I made $301,683. And don't forget, I still had my original spare bedroom that started this whole Airbnb thing on my original Airbnb account. So I eventually moved out of that unit. I listed the entire thing on Airbnb, and that unit earned me $59,000 for the year. So in summary, the only number that you need to remember is that I earned $301,000 my first year listing rentals that I didn't own on Airbnb. I ended up quitting my job after the 4th Airbnb listing because I was making so much more from Airbnb than I did on my job, and I was having a lot more fun. Plus, I didn't have to wear a suit and tie. I now average between $1,230 and $3,100 profit per month on each and every property. And the best part is I work less than 2 hours a day to manage everything. Now I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. It's exactly what happened. And because I had participated in the big real estate crash of the mid-2000s, I had to do this entire thing with bad credit, very little cash, foreclosures on my credit reports, and I had no ability to buy property, but it didn't stop me. So let me ask you a question. Are you ready to get your first listing on Airbnb yet? The Airbnb difference. Airbnb is now the largest provider of accommodations in the world. Airbnb has become bigger than any hotel chain. Just look at these impressive stats. Airbnb operates in 191 countries. There are over 5 million listings worldwide. There are listings in 81,000 different cities around the world, and over 400 million guest arrivals to date. Any given night, there are 2 million people staying in an Airbnb. To say Airbnb is a phenomenon would be an understatement, and its growth is showing no signs of slowing down. Airbnb has 1.4 million new customers signing up each and every week to use their service. But the best thing about Airbnb is never mentioned in the media. It can't be found on Airbnb's website or in their blog, and it's never really mentioned by Airbnb hosts. Here's the secret: Airbnb doesn't care who owns the property, which means you can become a financially independent real estate investor without owning any real estate. You can simply rent property, list it on Airbnb, and experience a significant stream of cash flow into your life. Or, as one of my successful students in New Jersey says, experience a flood of cash flow. Let that sink in for a moment. This means it's entirely feasible to become an Airbnb millionaire. In fact, there are 75 people who have already done it, according to Forbes magazine. So how does Airbnb help me make money? Airbnb allows anybody to host paying guests in a spare bedroom or an entire property for a nightly rate, just like a hotel. And what Airbnb does is they handle all your customer credit card payments. They handle the ID verification, all the scheduling in the calendar. They even insure the owner of the property for up to $1 million in the rare event of guest damages. All that for just a 3% fee. That means you get to keep 97% of the money. Also, they pay you every single day after a guest checks in. You don't have to take credit cards or cash. You don't have to screen your guests. You don't have to go find your guests. You don't even need to advertise. All of that is done for you by Airbnb. What makes this opportunity so powerful? I'm going to break this Airbnb business down for you in detail. So let's take a typical rental that you would see in any city in the United States. In this example, I'm going to use Atlanta, Georgia. In the United States right now, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment is currently $1,234 a month. So let's take the example of a $1,200 a month property that's owned by Mr. Owner. Mr. Owner is looking for a long-term tenant to live in it 30 days a month. Well, really what he's looking for is somebody to live in it 365 days a year, but that breaks down roughly into 30-day chunks. Are you following me so far? So if he's charging $1,200 a month, he's really charging $40 a day to live in that property. Now, we don't normally think of renting in terms of how much do we pay per day, but it's good to use for this comparison. You're going to see why in just a moment. Now, let's assume that Mr. Owner's mortgage payment on this property is about $900, which includes taxes and insurance and all of that. So that means he's going to make $300 in profit for every month that he has a tenant in that unit. Pretty straightforward, right? That's how a traditional real estate investor makes money with rentals. Purchase a property, fix it up, lease it to one tenant, make a little profit each month. Now, what if instead of one long-term tenant, he rented that place to someone like me, someone who understands the power of Airbnb? So I get permission to lease the property, and instead of living in it myself, I list it on the Airbnb site. And I'm going to turn it into a listing and charge $130 a night for guests to stay there. Now, why $130 a night? Because right now, the average daily hotel room rate in the United States is $133. So let's say I took this property and I only book guests in it about 20 days a month. So $130 times 20 days equals $2,600 a month. So what is my profit on this deal? Well, if we take away the original $1,200 in rent that I got to pay the owner, and let's say another $200 in utilities, we take both of those away, and I have a profit of $1,200 a month or $14,400 a year. But you might be thinking, well, somebody's got to clean the property, right? Yes, that's true, but the cleaning fee is an additional fee that can be charged to your guest at the time of booking. It's not an expense out of your pocket. And on Airbnb, people are used to paying a cleaning fee when they go to book the property. So you can see here, this is the difference between the old way versus the new way. The old way in this example is renting out a property to one tenant and making $300 a month. The new way is turning the unit into a B&B and making $1,200 a month. That's 400% more profitable. And this is a very conservative example. You could book more than 20 days a month. You could test increasing your price. I personally average between $1,230 and $3,100 net profit per month on each of my Airbnb listings. So you can actually make more, a lot more. So let's ask the question, how quickly would it take a traditional real estate investor to reach break even? I always like to know how quickly I get my money back. So I'm going to do a quick break even comparison between the old way versus the new way. Let's assume Mr. Owner purchased this property for $200,000. If you're not living in the property, it's considered an investment property by mortgage lenders, so you have to come up with usually about 20%, maybe even 30% down depending on the area. So let's say this owner came up with 20% down, which is $40,000 cash in order to purchase this property. That doesn't include any closing costs or home improvements, but it will take Mr. Owner, using the traditional method, 133 months or 11 years to get his money back or to break even. Using this new way of investing in real estate, I'm not even purchasing the property. I don't need to come up with a $40,000 down payment. I don't have to come up with closing costs. I may have to come up with a deposit or the first month's rent, but I get that back in the first 30 days. So it only takes me roughly about 30 days, assuming it's furnished, to get my money back. And if the rental isn't furnished, you can easily furnish it on the cheap using sites like Craigslist, or if you prefer, use a credit card to purchase the items at a furniture store and then pay it back with the money that you make as a B&B. Regardless, you should still break even in 30 to 60 days. The new way to invest in real estate is not only 400 times more profitable, it's 133 times faster to break even. Now, some owners may ask for a deposit in first month's rent, so in this example, you would need $2,400 to get in the property. Since we're earning $2,600, you still get to cash flow your first month. Then every month thereafter, you put $1,200 in your pocket. And you can see from my examples earlier that I showed you with my own listings that $1,200 is a very conservative number. The key to Airbnb success. The key to Airbnb success is multiple listings. Now imagine if your first listing makes $1,200 a month, every month in your pocket. Would you do just one property? Of course not. Remember that Forbes article talking about all the people that are making $1 million a year on Airbnb? They're doing that with multiple listings. The name of the game is to go get another listing. So now with 2 listings, you're making $2,400 a month net. Then a couple months after that, let's say you get another listing. Now you're bringing in $3,600 a month. And you keep adding listings until you have 7 listings. Why 7 listings? 7 listings equals $8,400 a month, or a little over $100,000 a year. And now you're just getting started. This is the exact method that I used to earn over $300,000 my first year and $117,000 in the first 6 months alone. And just to be clear, I earned 6 figures with just 5 listings. But will Airbnb work in my city? By far, the most asked question I hear every week is, "Hey Brian, will Airbnb work in my city?" The question usually comes from older people who grew up in the Holiday Inn era. They've been trained that when you're out of town and need to stay overnight, you book a hotel room. The truth is that if you have a hotel in your area, you can have a profitable Airbnb. As one of my students said it best, "We live in a small town of 100,000 people. You just got to take one hotel room away from those hotels, and you've got a profitable Airbnb." Do you need to be located in a tourist area? Many people think that to have a successful Airbnb, you must be located in a tourist area. That's just not true. As you've learned, if you have a hotel in your city, you have people that need to stay overnight. And many of those people are now, instead of looking for hotels, want to travel using Airbnb. The founders of Airbnb themselves started by offering rooms in their own apartments located near convention centers that were priced cheaper than hotels. So they were going after the convention center market. And while tourist destinations are one type of location, there are actually 48 different types of profitable Airbnb locations. Airbnb listings near convention centers and hotels are just 2 of them. So let's talk about the 8 big takeaways so far. The first big takeaway is that if you've ever rented a property in your entire life, you already know how half of this works. The number 2 big takeaway is you don't need to own property to earn 6 figures or more. You can rent. Number 3, you can earn a lot more with Airbnb than leasing to a single long-term tenant. Number 4, you can break even or more likely become profitable during the first 30 to 60 days compared to waiting years using the traditional method. Number 5, you can get started with as little as a deposit and 1 month's rent. Number 6, you can be profitable before your first rent payment is even due. Number 7, with multiple listings, you can quickly become an Airbnb millionaire. And number 8, you can do this with low credit scores, very little cash, and even foreclosures on your credit reports. You're invited to attend a free presentation and discover more details on how you can earn 6 figures on Airbnb. You see, there's an art and a science to building an Airbnb empire. Learning what does not work is just as valuable as learning what does. There's a formula for success that's worked not just for me, but for my nearly 5,000 students around the world. So my question to you is, what if you could create your own Airbnb business without having to own any property? And you could start right now no matter what your level of experience is. How confident would you be if I walked you through every single step of the process? If you're interested, I'm going to show you how to build your own Airbnb business from start to finish, and when we're done, you'll have your very first profitable listing on Airbnb. So if you're tired of relying on income that comes from a job, if you want your first listing fast with a lot less effort, or if you want to learn the skill of creating semi-passive cash flow from multiple Airbnb listings without the need to own a single property, then you're invited to attend my free 90-minute presentation to learn all the details. All you got to do is go to discover.bnbformula.com. That's discover.bnbformula.com and register for this free 90-minute presentation.